There are moments in life when the veil between existence and non-existence things. When time folds, and we are left face to face with the elemental question, will I survive this? A heart attack, especially when you are alone, is one such moment. It is not merely a medical event. It is an existential encounter. An archetype stirs within, one that knows no language, yet speaks with urgency. You must learn to listen to it. First, you must recognize the signs, not in panic, but in clarity. Discomfort in the chest, shortness of breath, cold sweat. These are not just symptoms. They are messengers from the unconscious. Your body alerting you to a rupture in the harmony of your inner order. Then, when fear seeks to unseat your consciousness, do not surrender. Take control. Cough. Deeply, rhythmically. Every 2 seconds, cough. This is not desperation. This is survival. Coughing can act like an internal resuscitation, a means to stimulate the heart, to preserve circulation, to hold on to the thread of life. With each breath, each contraction, you are asserting your will to remain. Next, summon help. Call emergency services, even if your voice trembles, even if your vision dims. It is not weakness to ask for aid. It is the wisdom of one who recognizes the interdependence of all things. Your voice, however faint, can still summon rescue. Then lie down, on your back or propped slightly if you struggle to breathe. Stillness is not passivity. It is a sanctuary in which your energy gathers, your heart stabilizes. The body must conserve, and you must let it. You are not only saving yourself through physical action, you are confronting the shadow, the presence of death itself. To do so, even in weakness, is heroic. Survival is not brute force. It is alignment. It is the conscious self uniting with the instincts below. And if you live, and you likely will, if you act, you will not be the same. You will be reborn with knowledge, not only of your body's frailty, but of your spirit's resilience. So remember this, not with fear, but with reverencing alone during a heart attack. Do this immediately. Not just to survive, but to choose life in its most primal and profound sense. There are moments when the body ceases to be a silent partner in our journey and instead becomes the loudest voice in the room. A heart attack is one of those rare and terrifying moments when the unconscious erupts into conscious awareness, not just through pain, but through profound symbolism. It is not only the shutting down of a physical organ, but a summons from deep within, a rupture in the fiat of control we maintain over our lives. In that instant, the self is called inward. The heart, long regarded as the seat of life, begins to falter, and with it comes a confrontation not only with mortality, but with meaning itself. The body, which we often ignore or take for granted, declares its sovereignty, demanding that we pay attention not only to its mechanics, but to the deeper story it tells. This experience is not simply biological. It is archetypal. The heart attack becomes a threshold experience, a messenger that calls for transformation. To recognize it is not just to notice the symptoms. It is to feel the tremor in the soul, the alarm that rings not just in the chest, but in the entire being. Fear may rise, but so does awareness. The heart, by faltering, forces the psyche to awaken. In that split second between realization and reaction, there is a narrow gate. One can fall into helplessness, or rise into fierce, lucid presence. The body is calling for action, and deeper still, the psyche is inviting the individual into a confrontation with the shadow, with the possibility of annihilation, and therefore, the possibility of rebirth. To know what is happening is to begin the process of surviving, not just the event, but the deeper crisis it represents. In the critical seconds following the realization that something is terribly wrong, fear arrives. Not as a gentle whisper, but as a storm. The chest tightens, the breath shortens, and the mind begins to scatter. Yet in this chaos, the first breath you take with awareness is not just for oxygen. It is a declaration. It is the act of gathering yourself in the face of dissolution. Fear, if left unchecked, multiplies. It constricts the breath further, narrows thought, and renders the individual passive, paralyzed by the sheer weight of panic. But the conscious choice to inhale, not reflexively, but deliberately, is a return to the seat of command. It is a signal, both to the body and the psyche, that presence has not been abandoned. The first breath is a tool of mastery. It opens space where panic would close it. It reconnects the individual to the rhythms of life, even as the heart falters. To breathe with intention is not only a physiological act, but a psychological one. It is the reclaiming of agency in a moment when all seems to be slipping away. With that breath comes clarity. It slows the racing mind, brings awareness back to the body, and prepares it for action. One cannot control the heart directly, but one can control the breath, and through that, reassert influence over fear itself. This is not a denial of danger. It is a disciplined acknowledgement of it. The first breath is not only the beginning of survival, it is a quiet form of resistance, a refusal to be overcome by terror. In mastering the breath, one begins to master the moment, and in mastering the moment, One gives the self its greatest chance to endure. When the heart begins to falter, the instinct may be to collapse inward, to submit to the overwhelming sensations of pain and dread. But there is, within us, a deeper instinct. Not one of surrender, but of rhythm, of preservation. Coughing, in this moment, becomes more than a reflex. It becomes an act of conscious defiance, a deliberate engagement with the failing rhythm of the heart. With each strong cough, deep, forceful, timed every few seconds, you are not merely reacting. You are participating in your own survival. It may seem counterintuitive, even strange, but this simple action can help maintain circulation when the heart's beat becomes erratic or dangerously slow. The pressure from the chest compresses the heart, much like a manual pump, giving blood the nudge it needs to continue moving. And with it, consciousness is extended, held in place just long enough for help to arrive or for action to be taken. This rhythm, born of will and breath, connects us to life in its most elemental form. The cough is not just noise. It is the echo of life asserting itself. It requires awareness, discipline, and trust in the body's ability to aid itself. It is not dramatic, it is practical, grounded, and immediate. But it carries with it something far deeper. In a moment when all feels chaotic, coughing with conscious intent restores order. It reintroduces a pattern into the disordered system of the body and psyche. It says, I am still here. I am still acting. I am not yet gone. Even in distress, one can participate in one's survival. Not only through external rescue, but through internal will. And in that rhythm, in that sequence of deliberate motion, the self holds on, not by chance, but by choice. To reach for the phone, to dial a number, to summon help. These are simple actions, yet in moments of crisis, they become charged with immense symbolic weight. In the solitude of a heart attack, calling for help is not just a practical necessity. It is a declaration that your life matters enough to be saved. It is an act that affirms connection in a moment when isolation seems overwhelming. The very motion of asking for help breaks the illusion of total independence, revealing the deeper truth that no one survives alone. To call out is to engage the world outside the self, to reach across the threshold between isolation and relationship, between despair and hope. There is also something profoundly humbling in it. The voice, possibly weak or trembling, becomes the bridge between life and death. That voice, however faint, carries intent. It says, I want to live. I choose to resist the silence. And in that choice, there is power. It may not roar with strength, but it resonates with meaning. It is not shameful to need others in that moment. It is, in fact, a form of wisdom. The ego, which often clings to the idea of self-reliance, must surrender to the greater reality of interdependence. The symbolic purpose of calling for help is not merely to trigger a rescue. It is to engage the world as witness and partner in your survival. It affirms that you are part of a greater network of meaning, of care, of life. The act itself transforms the moment from one of abandonment to one of invocation, from suffering and silence to calling life back into presence. It is an act of courage, of humility, and ultimately, of faith in the value of one's own existence. When the heart trembles and the body begins to betray its usual steadiness, instinct often urges movement. Panic, pacing, the desperate search for relief. But in this moment, survival does not come from motion, it comes from stillness. To lie down is not to give up. It is to surrender consciously to what the body needs most: in alignment, conservation, and presence. The act of lying down becomes a sanctuary, a posture of trust in the wisdom of the body. It allows the heart to labor with less resistance, eases the demand placed on failing circulation, and stabilizes the fragile balance between breath and blood. This posture is not passive. It is strategic. Whether on the back with knees slightly bent or propped gently if breathing is difficult, the body begins to settle into a position that favors its own repair. Energy is no longer scattered through movement or held captive by tension. Instead, it returns to the center, to the place where healing, even in crisis, becomes possible. To lie down is to quiet the chaos, both within and without. It creates space to think clearly, to act deliberately, to feel what must be felt without being overtaken by it. In a deeper sense, this posture echoes the symbolic gesture of retreat, not in weakness but in wisdom. The warrior does not fight every battle on foot. Some battles require grounding, stillness, patience. In lying down, you are not collapsing, you are reorienting. You are aligning the body with gravity, letting the earth hold some of the weight that has become too much to bear alone. It is in this sanctuary of posture that the self may find a moment of protection, a space to breathe, and a fragile but vital chance to endure. In the throes of a heart attack, a threshold is crossed, not only in the body but in the psyche. It is here, in this suspended space between life and death, that the shadow appears. Not the shadow of external darkness, but the inner one. The hidden fear of helplessness, the dread of mortality, the unspoken belief that control is an illusion. This confrontation is unavoidable. It arrives not as an idea, but as raw sensation, the thudding heart, the narrowing breath, the looming question of whether you will survive. And yet, within this confrontation lies the essential paradox of survival. While it is the body that falters, it is the will that rises. Instinct kicks in, not the wild panic of unchecked fear, but the deeper, older intelligence of the organism. You break off. You call for help. You lie still. These are not grand gestures. They are quiet acts of resistance. You are no longer moving through life on autopilot. You are fully awake in the face of the unknown. The shadow, though terrifying, is not the enemy. It is the honest mirror of what is reeling, that life is fragile, that death is near, but that within you still burns the fire to continue. To survive is to summon the will to act in the presence of that shadow, not by denying it, but by facing it with clarity. You do not bargain or beg. You respond. With instinct sharpened by awareness, with choices made moment to moment, you move through the fear, not around it. This is not the victory of strength over weakness, but the alignment of self with the primal force of life. In that alignment, survival is no longer a question of chance. It becomes an act of quiet, conscious courage.